So, I had an idea today. What if I take my obscure favorite card game that no one knows and no one cares about, take a moment to explain some of the decks in it? Because, maybe someone out there will see it. Maybe someone out there will be intrigued. Maybe someone out there will look into this. And that when we get more players. To start this out today, I'm going to be doing a world match, so I'm fighting a real person, using my personal Overlord deck. First one I built for this game. We're going in a ranked fight. Now, the game's pretty dead, so the queue system, it's going to take a while. A very long while. And I'm actually cutting out a decent chunk of this, because it's just bad how long this took to find a match. It took like 10 minutes. But anyways, we're fighting Sharkferno. This was an interesting one. We're going to start the good old Rochambeau after the game finally loads. And I start out with scissors. I normally go rock when I was feeling special. I see that, and I say to go paper, immediately losing. I'm not good at that. Make me go second. I look at my starting hand. Not too bad cards. Two cards I need in the Blazing Horn Dragon, a Sentinel to guard, a draw trigger, and a card I can use for later. But I'm a little worried, so I'm going to return the card I can use for later because it's not the best, and I draw a heal trigger, which isn't the best. First thing I notice is my opponent is running the same Vanguard as me. I'm a little curious because I know what that means. I first immediately notice the embodiment of Armor Bar. Then I see the Dragonic Overlord in drop, and I know what they're playing. It's a variation of my deck that I myself use. By dropping a draw trigger, I will ride Bar myself, activating my secondary ability to draw a card. It's on all starting Vanguard, so it's nothing too special. Then I'm actually sitting for a little bit because I don't know what to do, and I decide to go straight up for an attack. I don't have anything I really want to play right now. This is my best course of action. I don't get anything on my trigger check, but Hardy will help for later, and I see my opponent pulls a critical trigger, so they won't be able to use that one against me. And I'm actually a little excited for that. I notice it's the one for putting it into the soul, so I actually don't fully know what to expect if they're going to use Nahalem a lot later on, because he has an ability that will help him out as it would help me out. But I'm still very scared of that Dragonic Overlord in his drop zone. He drops a critical trigger and rides Nahalem. That makes me know he's down half his critical, so I'm not too worried. But Bar's ability activates, which allows him to search for a grade 1. Now that he's searching, I'm thinking he might get himself a Hardy, because that card is used, and there it is, it's used to discard as 2 cards, which is used in a later card down his ride line. Then he goes to battle. He didn't call anything, which confused me, and I just decided to take this damage to build up some counterblast for myself. He gets himself a Blazing Horn Dragon, which worries me too. Then I do my damage check, no trigger, but I lose a Dragon Monk Gojo. Next, we'll go to my turn. I'm going to drop, I believe the best course of action is going to be to drop, probably Hardy, but I might need him for later, so I'm going to drop this card instead. He's not even that useful right now. And I activate my Bar's ability by counterblasting 1 when I ride Nahalem. And I'm looking, and I see it, I'm grabbing this Sentinel card. It's a defensive card that I can use to entirely guard an attack by discarding a card. And if I only have two cards, or 1 card in hand, I no longer need a guard. I call a Blazing Horn Dragon in Bar, and I forget I can't activate Blazing Horn Dragon's ability because I don't have another damage. So I just go straight for an attack after that. He doesn't guard, which is a little bit beneficial, but he's building Counterblast 2, and that worries me. No trigger, and I see that card there, and I know exactly what deck he's playing. Because I built it myself, and I just didn't really like it. And I attack with my Nahalem, supported by Bar. With no guard, I do my trigger check, another Nahalem, and the damage will connect. He pulls himself another Hardy, which isn't that bad, and Bar's ability could activate, but I don't want to because it's of no use to me. Now his turn, and time for the moment of truth. What's he gonna ride? I know deep down, and I'm very terrified. There it is, Dragonic Overlord the End. A very strong card that gets to attack twice. If it attacks once, you use 1 counterblast and discard a card. Using Nahalem's ability from being ridden, it gets called out of the soul whenever the opponent rides with an Overlord card. He's using its Soul Blast by dropping a card from the soul to give both itself and a unit with Overlord in its name an extra 5,000 power boost. I don't know if he's going to call anything else, and he calls a Burning Horn Dragon, which can be used to search for a card with Overlord at the cost of 1 counterblast. You look at the top 7 cards. And, unfortunately for me, he finds a Dragonic Overlord at the end, which means he's going to Persona Ride if I don't take him out fast. If he didn't find anything with Burning Horn Dragon, he'd get to counter charge and turn one of his face down damage back to face up so he can use it later. He goes straight for the attack, and that will power up Burning Horn Dragon with its other ability. When a unit with Overlord in its card name attacks, it gets an extra 5,000 bonus, which is useful since Overlord can attack twice. He does a twin drive check since he's at grade 3, and he gets to check for 2 triggers, doesn't find anything, and that card confuses me because I've not seen it before. So I don't fully know what it can do, and that's not the best. I take Overlord's attack, hoping for a trigger. I don't pull anything, and I just lose a Hardy. I'm then braced for another attack, and I can see him. I'm checking what I can block with, and I see him just sitting there. So he's also deciding if he wants to use a counter blast for an attack. But he's running a little low on damage. And finally, he decides not to, and he just attacks with Burning Horn Dragon. I decide to take it in hopes of getting another trigger, because that trigger will make it so Nahalem doesn't attack me, and I have more cards to guard with. And unfortunately, there goes one of my precious Sentinel cards. I can only have 4 in a deck, and there goes another one of mine. I have already seen 3 of them. He attacked with Nahalem, and I just almost want to use a Hardy to block, but I just use this card instead. And since his opponent is at grade 3 and I'm a grade lower, that's when it gets its bonus to guard, an extra 1,500. A little bit of a waste, but it's a 10,000 guard otherwise, so it's really the best card in my opinion to use here. Again, probably not the best, but I was starting to worry because I knew what was coming. I draw Critical Trigger, not what I want to see, so I just drop it to ride in. Nah, maybe not. I think Nahalem's a better drop. And I go to Dragonic Overlord at the end, which will activate my own Nahalem's ability from the soul, and I call him to a back rear guard. He won't be able to boost, but I can activate his ability from there, and he won't be in danger. And I call another Burning Horn Dragon and search for my own Dragonic Overlord at the end, because my ride line runs a little differently. Unfortunately, he's not there. Which you'll see this ability, that allows me to counter charge damage from my choice, so I got a counter blast back. Not the biggest luck. I activate Nahalem's ability, dropping my Lizard Runner Undu, and get him in Nahalem a 5,000 boost, not that it'll help Nahalem at all. Next, I'll just go to straight attacking. I'm going to choose his Burning Horn Dragon over his Nahalem, because that thing can spiral a little bit, which will activate both of my Burning Horn Dragons for 1, and this is why I gave a 5,000 power boost to Overlord. If he intercepted with his Nahalem, since he can't guard from his hand, my Overlord wouldn't land his attack, and he needs to land his attack for me to have a chance for another attack. There's a bar from that drive check, and there's a Nahalem. Not triggers, not too useful, but it's something to guard with, I guess. But since the attack connected, the Embodiment of Armor bar will get an extra 5,000 attack points, and at a cost of 1 counterblast and 1 card discarded, which Hardy counts as 2, I get to stand Overlord right back up and attack. But Hardy's drop skill activates since he was dropped in by a card with Overlord, and I call him to rear guard with an extra 5,000 boost for this turn. That 2 card discard cost is actually what Dragonic Overlord at the end has, which is why he's running Hardy's, and as soon as I saw that Dragonic Overlord go and drop, I knew what I was fighting. I attack with my weaker card in case he pulls a trigger. There's a Dragonic Overlord at the end, so that's a lack of a Persona Ride, but I would have hoped for some better than that, because he already has one. I go for my Overlord play next, trying to get a trigger, activating both my Burning Horns abilities, and brace for the best or the worst. I really need a trigger at this point. If I pull a critical trigger, I win here and now probably, unless he gets a heal or an over trigger. He's also debating that a little bit, he can see that, but he decides to take the hit, no guard. Drive check, only 1 this time, and it's just Gojo. The match continues. I know for a fact he's going to guard Blazing Horn Dragon, and this is where I did a bit of a misplay probably, and I decided just to attack Nahalem to get rid of the card, thinking he'd have to use another card, but he already has 9 in hand. I should have just went for him and made him guard. That would have been a smarter play, but my nerves are trying to get to me right here, because I know how this deck is about to go. He's going to Persona Ride, and he's going to put Dragonic Overlord into his soul next turn. There it is, the Persona Ride. That gives an extra 10,000 power to his front 3 unit circles, and he gets to draw a card. There's that call, which I know what that's going to do. He activates its skill to immediately retire it, but that puts the Dragonic Overlord from his drop zone right into his soul, giving Dragonic Overlord the end an extra 5,000 power, and for his card effect, instead of losing a drive check like I do, he keeps all his drive, which an extra card can very much determine the game. He calls that card I haven't seen in Burning Horn Dragon, and I don't fully check it at first, because I checked it earlier, and yeah, I probably should have guarded this, because it's going to take out one of my units. But there's a heal trigger. Unfortunately, since I'm at lower damage, all I get is the power boost, and I don't get to heal a card. So that's a heal trigger wasted. There's its skill activating. By retiring that unit, he gets to retire one of mine. Bye-bye, Burning Horn Dragon. That's one less intercept to have, even though I probably wouldn't intercept, because I have a hard time intercepting those. It's a flaw I have. And that activates his Burning Horn Dragon, since Overlord's attacking. And I gotta use a Sentinel. What if he pulls triggers? Pulls an Overtrigger, I'm in a big world of hurt, because the Dragon Empire Overtrigger will make him stand back up and give him 100 million power. That's what I'm so scared about. He gets another card that could sacrifice, it's useless to him. Guard, he gets another card that will retire a unit, that's going to be useful for him. An extra 10k guard to his hand. Just 9 cards in there, and he's going to get 11 because he's going to stand Overlord back up and attack again. Well, he's going to drop 1. It's going to be one of those Hardys, so he'll just be at 10 cards. And there's Hardy coming out of the drop zone this time. I'm starting to sweat, because I don't know if I'll win next turn. But there comes that retire. I didn't know what that does, and I check it. It just draws a card, so because he stood, so he's back up to those 11 cards. There's Burning Horn Dragon with its power increase. I decide to just guard with a trigger and guard with a bar, so that he will take 2 triggers to overpower and defeat me. And I had that Sentinel in hopes that it'll put the trigger on the other unit, but he pulls a critical trigger first. He could put it all in his Vanguard and bank on breaking through right here and now, but he does the smart play and he puts the critical and the power on Burning Horn Dragon, since I'm only at 3 cards. Doesn't get the second trigger, and that was his correct play there. Then, there comes that Burning Horn Dragon at 2 criticals. I am dead if that hits me. I don't want to bank on a heal trigger. I'm just too worried. I just use it right now, which is going to cause me to discard a card since I'm at 2 cards. So there goes a Hardy, and I'm just down to Nahalem. But I need that Nahalem to have something that can attack with next turn. I'm not happy to have 1 card versus 11. I'm probably just screwed here. Then we hear the last turn music, and I see I got a Berserk Dragon. Okay, I can kinda do something with it. If I attack a lot and whittle down his hand, that can retire a unit. I'm just going for everything he has. I activate Nahalem's ability, sacrificing my last bar. I wanted to use my other Nahalem, just right over it to activate the ability once more, but I just don't have any more soul for it. Go straight into battle. Attack with Overlord, not supported, so Bar can get his effect right at his rear guard. Burning Horn Dragon will get a 5,000 power increase. And I'm shaking a little bit right here. I'm like, I could maybe get this, but he probably has his Sentinel. I get a card, that card from earlier. When I drop it, with Overlord's ability, not specifically, but during my battle phase, it goes into the soul and I get 5,000 power. That's useful to me. There's Bar's ability, giving him his extra 5,000 power. And I'm like, I have to do it. I have to go for it. I drop that card to my drop zone, get that 5,000 power boost, and it's gotta go on Dragonic Overlord. I could get a trigger, I get an over trigger, restand my Vanguard, have something I could use. Burning Horn Dragon attacks, I should have waited on this. I didn't, I was just seeing my lowest attack unit get a card out of his hand, just do something. Should have burned a better card by attacking with my Vanguard first. You see that card I said was useless now? He guards with it. It adds no value, it's just perfect defense fodder. Then I go at him for 36,000 with Overlord. And here comes Burning Horn Dragon's ability. That's when I remembered it, and I'm a little frustrated. I'm like realizing I could have taken out another card. There's a Sentinel, dropping a card from his hand to perfectly guard my attack. A smart play. My one drive trigger check. Over trigger here, game changer. And what do I get? I get a draw trigger. That's 10,000. I'm going to put on Berserk Dragon since he's still standing. And there's my Dragonic Overlord at the end, taunting me from my hand. Completely useless. As a grade 3, it has no guard. It's just taking up space. And I'll attack with my Berserk Dragon, supported by Hardy. And since my Vanguard has Overlord in his name, he gets an extra 5,000 power. And at a cost of 1 counterblast, I can retire one of his rear guards. This completely wipes out his rear guard. And if he overguards this, which he's going to have to guard this because he's at 5 damage, he's now down to 6 cards in his hand. He's going to have to call some of those to the rear guard. So if I can survive this turn, I have a decent chance. But if he has another Hardian turn, he's getting 1 card from draw and 4 cards from drive trigger check, dropping 1. He'll be at least 4 more cards, but he calls final turn, and he's probably right about this. There's not much left I can do. Reactivating the final turn theme for Dragon Empire, since mine was for fighting about 5 damage and him for calling final turn. He calls those cards that retire my unit. He calls a rear guard. 4 cards in hand, probably in case he doesn't win here, in case I have a bunch of Sentinels, or at least 1. I take this damage, and I'm praying for a trigger. And nothing. My last Sentinel right there. And my opponent's probably smart because this game is played by dedicated players. He knows I no longer have a Sentinel. He doesn't have to be worried about that. But I could have my Overtrigger in hand, which is a 50k guard card. I wish I did. I wish I had something. I just use up Nahalem and my draw trigger. But the draw trigger gets a bonus effect for going in the zone, giving him 5,000. I actually didn't realize I didn't use Nahalem. But doesn't really matter. There's a front trigger. Gonna be bad. No trigger. He just pierces through. Even if I would have used Nahalem there, it would have tied, and attackers win their ties. And I'm just hoping heal trigger, over trigger, something to live. And there it is, Dragonic Overlord the end. My own fitting end. A loss, but a good learning experience. Maybe I should build a deck more around going to Overlord the end first, then to my regular Overlord. But that's just how it goes. Really hard to build rank in this game when everyone's just as good as this.